Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farhan Dogar. Viewers, in the past, we have discussed the issue of Kashmir for quite some time, repeatedly in this program. But today, once again, we have to do it because India has unleashed a new chapter of brutalities in occupied Kashmir. We know that they killed, the Indian occupying forces killed 17 innocent Kashmiris in a single day yesterday. After that, we saw that more protests actually broke out, and that series of protests hasn't gone away. But what exactly is going on? Why is it that Indian government can think that it can work with impunity? Why is it that we see so many people being blinded every day, and yet the world that isn't blind at all keeps on pretending that it also cannot see the kids who have been maimed, who have been deprived of their eyes, their lives actually. So we are going to discuss all these matters and try to understand what exactly happens in the coming days. There is another very important aspect that we have to see, the response of the state of Pakistan. We know that the cabinet of Pakistan, the federal cabinet of Pakistan actually met. There was a special session, and there we saw that there were certain proposals floated. That special envoys from Pakistan will approach various capitals of the world. They will be sent by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and they will try to highlight the issues and the suffering of the Kashmiri people. That is one. Of course, the cabinet also condemned this brutality, and they also spoke about the need of the international community to pay attention to the plight of Kashmiri people. We are going to discuss all these matters and more in today's program and try to understand, A, what is wrong with the world that it doesn't see, what is happening right before their eyes. Second, how best can Pakistan respond to this situation, because Pakistan has to do it, and if Pakistan doesn't highlight the matter, who else will? In order to help us understand these matters, we have with us a very august panel. We have with us Lord Nazir Ahmad, Member Parliament, United Kingdom. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Before I introduce the next guest, let me also tell you that Lord Nazir Ahmad has also spent a lot of time and energy in highlighting the Kashmir issue all over the world. Next to him is Altaf Hussain Wani Saab, senior leader of APHC. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program as well. Next to him is Mushaal Mullick Sahiba, chairperson, Peace and Culture Organization. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being part of the program as well. Lord Nazir Ahmad, I have to start with you, sir. Pakistan has been highlighting this issue for 70 years. And especially in past 2 years, we have seen new tale of atrocities in Kashmir. Why is it the world doesn't listen?
Well, first of all, you have a BJP right-wing fascist government in India, which is supported by RSS. Everybody knows that these fascists love to attack minorities, whether it's Muslim, whether it's Christian, Dalits, or any minorities, because some of their MPAs have been quoted by saying that by 2025 they will drive out all non-Hindus, and they will, Hindustan is for Hindus only. Right. Secondly, India is a very powerful economic place for countries in the West, especially after the financial crisis. Everybody wants some business, 1.3 billion people. And then regional politics as well. You can see the American interests have changed. They were first with Pakistan, and now they are wanting to, well, they've already got India supporting US. And so the new coalitions have built in the region. Right. So in any country in the world, it's the national interest of their own countries. Right. People do not want to fight your war. They will not represent you and take these matters at the Security Council or anywhere else. If it helps them to build their economy or their political strength, they will help you. There are certain courses causes which they will support. But on this particular issue, one thing I must say, that Pakistanis have always supported Kashmir cause. And I want to say thank you to all the Pakistani people. But even, you started off by saying Pakistan government has supported Kashmir cause for 70 years. I think I would argue that sometimes did and sometimes not. In the last few years.
We are going to talk about that as well. But before that, I have one more question. You were talking about the national interest of various countries, and I understand that. But usually the media, especially the Western media, is thought to be the conscience of the West. Even today, they are reporting what is going on in Palestine. Why is it that nobody from the Western media actually covers Kashmir or shows the plight of people of Kashmir the way it is supposed to be?
Well, sadly, Western media doesn't really cover matters in this part of the world or in developing countries. Look what's happening in Africa. Look what's happening in Burma, for instance, or very little is being reported on BBC. So I think some of it is also interest, because if you look at India, India does a lot of advertising on the Western media. So whether it is the BBC World, or whether it is Sky, or whether it is other channels and the newspapers, India has many of its own people actually working in there, but also because of the financial interests as well.
And we are going to talk about that as well later in the program. Wani Sahab, you actually were part of various efforts to highlight the plight of Kashmir abroad. We know that during the various UN sessions, UNGA sessions, you went abroad as well. What kind of reception do you get, and why is it that we don't get that kind of attention on the suffering of Kashmiri people?
You see, I will say on the part of the international human rights organizations or civil society groups around the globe, there is a large understanding between them that the sufferings of the people of Kashmir must come to an end. We have seen lots of reports in past 2 years from different international human rights watchdogs on Kashmir, very powerful reports from them. And so,
like HRW?
HRW, Amnesty International. This year, Amnesty International so far issues 15 appeals, urgent appeals, calling for end to the pallets in Kashmir, and also release of innocent children in Kashmir, and all that they have been doing. And likewise, there was a report, a very powerful report last year by the Physician for Human Rights. That report, very powerful report. There was a report from ICJ, a very powerful report.
So the world has started reading those reports?
Yeah, these reports are there. I'm coming to that. Even the UN special rapporteurs in their reports also called for halt to these human rights abuses in Kashmir, and called for to give Kashmir right to freedom of assembly and association, all that. But what is
so
actually,
it is all paper.
What actually is happening?
Yeah.
What actually is the problem is that the international human rights watchdogs, they can only recommend. They are toothless. They get the teeth from the political governments. The Western governments, as Lord was saying us, the Western governments, they are doing their politics on taking into account the economic interests, their strategical interests, and all on that account.
The world's economic interest says let Kashmiris die.
Let Kashmiris die. On that account,
why would that
they
be?
alter their economic on their human values. There are no human values, no more human values.
But
in
as somebody who
aspect.
actually believes in the bare minimum of Western values, at least human rights, democracy, everything, it becomes really difficult for a person like me to actually highlight this point and then say that there is merit to democracy or human rights. Let me bring in Mushaal Mullick Sahiba. Your take so far. At this moment, we have seen new round of atrocities. Can you tell us what actually triggered it?
I think the mood of the Indians, their lust for Kashmiri blood, and their hunger to capture the land and to terrorize the people. Because right now they are so frustrated, the Indian state and the Indian army, that because the people are completely fearless, they have tried to pellet them bruise them with shooter guns. Even in some incidents, phosphorus shell has been used, and raping the women, intimidating them, harassing them, using them as human shields.
Yeah.
They've done the maximum economic blockades over there. They've shut down the colleges, the schools. They have made army camps inside classrooms in the so-called 21st century, where people are starving, babies are without milk and they're dying. There are hunger strikes. There are thousands and thousands of people missing, but they're not giving up on their right to self-determination. So this is what is really irking the Indian state, irritating their ego, and just to satisfy that ego, they've gone for this incident of so-called search operations, actually they're killing operations, and they are brutally, ruthlessly, they are throwing the dead bodies of our youth. Just imagine what the parents must be going through, who have brought up such young boys. Just recently, a few weeks back, a PhD student who was studying in India came back on holidays back to Jammu and Kashmir, and he was shot dead. What was his fault? So many others, educated youth, have just died on the road because the main factor, I believe, is that their policy, the Indian policy, has always been the military power.
Right.
Because politically they have failed to win the hearts of our people, and also we were never in accession with India. So,
Right.
and this force, this Indian army is an occupation force, and all the crimes that they are committing on our people, all the Kashmiris that are dying right now, they are state subject.
Right. But recently we have witnessed a new wave of jingoism as well. Kill anybody,
Yeah.
call them a militant, and the world and Indian media is not even going to challenge that term. Second, use of human shield was one thing. It was celebrated. Now one of the BJP leader is actually selling T-shirts.
It's selling like hotcakes in India, and it's become a joke over there to make fun of the Kashmiri people because we are defenseless.
So
we don't have any army.
So we are told that
unarmed,
India is a democracy.
And whatever they call the militants, they're not militants and even if they are freedom fighters, they are state subject people. They are not an occupation. So war crime happens on, the Indian army should face the prosecution.
Right.
The Indian state should, because their whole policy is about state-sponsored terrorism.
Right.
And they should be declared a terrorist state. India, what they're doing right now with our innocent, unarmed people. And our struggle is an indigenous struggle, and they're just trying to create this kind of image that it's God forbid, it's moving towards terrorism. No. If Bhagat Singh, they call him their hero, a freedom fighter, what's wrong with our freedom fighters?
They would have called him a villain as well in today's circumstances.
Very few. You can just count them on numbers. It's a majority in armed struggle.
You're
in times
absolutely
of
right.
terrorism, we are in a political unarmed movement.
Right.
And so much patience.
Exactly. So, Lord Nazir Ahmad, we have been repeatedly told that India is a democracy, world's largest democracy. Whatever happened to that democracy when it comes to Kashmir?
Sadly, India says it's democracy, but it doesn't take any account of people in Kashmir, in Khalistan, in Punjab, in Nagaland, in Assam, in Manipur, many other parts where people are struggling to get their freedom. In Kashmir, of course, you have the United Nations resolutions, you have struggles basically to try and throw these fascists out of Kashmir, those who have taken over, and now especially with the fascist BJP and also, the Hindutva believing extremists. And so I think as far as democracy is concerned, it looks good from outside. This is the largest democracy in the world. But if you look at human rights, then Dalits and Muslims have become second-class citizens.
Right.
They are the majority now in India. So the minority, the Brahmin and the elitists, these BJP supporters and the Hindutva believing right-wing fascists, they're in minority, and yet they are the superior members of society and citizens, and everybody else becomes a second-class citizen.
So what you're saying is it is not basically a democracy now.
Well, democracy might be in terms of voting, but in terms of rights,
rituals,
if you look at some of the Christians who have been beaten up, their houses being burned, minorities that have been abused. You saw 5 people from Dalits yesterday killed, but they're on a regular basis. They're driven
UP
out of
and
their
MP. Even today they were killed.
So this happens in India on daily basis.
Right. And when I come back to you, sir, I'm going to ask about what can be done from Pakistan's vantage point. A person with your exposure can tell us that. But, sir, your take on India being a democracy.
Yeah, we have been listening that India is a democracy. Born in Kashmir, I have not seen India a democracy. I have always seen India a fascist state, whatever she was doing at that time. But unfortunately, the day this BJP right-wing government took over, it has become more fascist. Now, the radical Hindu extremism is now state condoned.
So majority of India, majority of Indians, are they moderates or they are extremists?
It's hard to believe. The Indian state had made to believe the people in India that the people of Kashmir, they are separatists, they are against the India, they are all that. But even then, there are sane voices in India who are calling on the government of India to end its military repression in Kashmir, to end its suppression in Kashmir, and to give Kashmiris the space to protest peacefully. But the government of India is not listening to it.
Yeah, as a Kashmiri, I must ask you one question. I understand that so much is going on, and whosoever actually raises voice for Kashmiris actually is dubbed an entire national. But usually when you talk about lobbying, the point is to actually spread the message. Are Kashmiris spreading that message or trying to do it within India as well? Educating the people of India?
Yeah, Kashmiris have been doing that, but unfortunately in the recent times, the BJP Hindu right-wing activists, whenever any Kashmiri leader goes out to a public place or to a school or a college or a university or to a think tank, whenever he goes to speak, he faces the wrath of those. Even during the custody, Shabir Ahmad Shah, he was in custody. When he was taken to the court, in the court, the right-wing Hindu extremists, they tried to assault him. The prisoners in Tihar jail, you might have heard that it was on 21st of November, when all the prisoners, Kashmiri prisoners in Tihar jail, they were attacked in the jail. Yasin Malik, 2 years back when he was in Delhi to address a press conference, he was attacked over there. He was attacked in Calcutta. Like the other activists who go to somewhere in the south, even a Hindu activist, I say Mr. Gandhi from Madras, who last year arranged some protests for Kashmir to raise the voice against the use of pellets in Kashmir. He was charged, sedition charges were leveled against him. He was taken into custody. So the Indians don't give you the space in India to spread your message. But whenever any Indian comes to Kashmir, those voices, those sane voices, they are not allowed to come. They are also asked to leave the Kashmir. They face, like we have seen the Arundhati Roy or Gautam Naulakar and others, they face the same thing. Even the BJP leaders.
I have to actually take the same question to Mushaal Mullick, because her husband, Yasin Malik Saab, actually is one of the many activists of renown. And with Arundhati Roy, he has also raised his voice. The question at this moment is there hope at all to sell the right of Kashmiris within India as well, to convince the people that they deserve to have this right?
You know, India has announced many policies like self-rule, like Kashmiriyat, and like the healing touch, and so many others. But actually on ground, they've never done anything for the Kashmiri people. They have offered dialogue with the Kashmiri people, but not when, you know, they're killing people at the same time, and then they expect the Hurriyat leadership to trust the Indian state. But, you know, the obsession of India with Kashmir is just like crazy, literally. I mean, the Indian state, India is on a denial when it comes to Kashmir, in my opinion, on 3 points. The government of India, second, the corporate-owned media of India, and third are the political stakeholders in India. Complete denial over rationality. And this obsession has driven them to the extent of madness. And now they become like savage, totally lost it completely. They're seeing their defeat emotionally. But yeah, you're talking about the Indian public, how to motivate them. Unfortunately, especially after BJP coming into power, the doves, they have scattered and the hawks have united.
Okay.
And the doves are scared.
Right.
And I don't see a good future for India in the near future. That secular thing is a dream now.
Yeah.
Gandhi must be crying in his grave right now. His soul must be shaking somewhere. So that fabric
the
has
Nehruvian
totally,
consensus is
the secular constitution has totally been torn by the BJP.
That-
And in the
that might-
next
that
few
might be
years, this
so.
saffronization is going to go to the extent of terrorism.
Right.
The Hindu
And I get
terrorism is
that.
going to come at the forefront. What they're doing with the Dalits, as Lord
I
Saab mentioned.
totally get that.
Yeah.
But there
It's a
is an
scary situation.
assumption.
I don't see much hope. The way Arundhati Roy and other such peace activists over there who want to be the peaceniks, they're very scared. Because they know that, actually nothing's going to happen. They will get harassed, they'll get beaten up. The way students in different universities in India, they're shouting, they're trying to protest, but how are they being intimidated, how they're being arrested?
We
Draconian
saw what
laws,
happened in
yes.
JNU and so many other
our,
places.
our youth, the
That is
Kashmiri
true.
youth is being tortured everywhere.
Right.
So
but one
they're-
would have thought
they're
that
going
in
through
the
the worst.
age of social media, in the age of new media, AI, so many other technologies, maybe the attempt to put the message across would have been easier. Should have been easier.
I wish
It
so.
doesn't happen
I-
like that.
Social media, they shut down. You
Okay.
see,
No, in Kashmir, but not in India, right?
Yes, but the Indians, if you look, I mean, when there's been rape cases, when there've been abuse cases, they outcry. The civil society comes out on streets and does that. But when it comes to Kashmir, sadly, everybody's silent because they know that these extremists will then attack them, and so. I think Sister Mushaal Mullick also made this point in the last time that we addressed a press conference, that those civil society sort of good people that actually
Peaceniks.
rise to any challenge, they don't actually say anything about Kashmir. So whether it is rape, whether it is killing, whether it is human rights abuses, whether it is pellet guns, use of pellet guns, or censorship and also ban of social media. So they don't do that. But
And
the other
this
thing
has
is the
been-
information also.
Lord,
because
Lord Nazir Ahmad, this has been going on before Modi's rise to power as well, right? Back in
certain
2014,
extent, well,
13?
to certain extent, but I think there's been much more increase since the election of BJP in government.
Yeah, but regarding Pakistan's role, and here's where I want to talk about Pakistan's soft power. I mean, Pakistan has been at it for quite some time, 70 years at least, we have been at least talking about it. Why is it that our soft power doesn't seem to work on such neutral minds? And it is India's propaganda that is immediately inhaled.
Well, first of all, India has very successfully created a narrative. Cross-border terrorism, terrorism from the neighboring country. Sadly, Pakistan has had its own problems, whether it is to do with Afghanistan, whether it is Taliban, Tariq-e-Taliban, all sorts of terrorist activities that were taking place in Pakistan. So it's much easier. And of course, you also have to remember that a few young people who claimed that they came to Islamabad and then traveled to Afghanistan, went back to European cities and then committed acts of terrorism. Therefore, the perception was already there, but the narrative built by India was always to blame. They had also, I tell you, they had experts waiting all the time.
Yeah, and this is my point actually. I understand what went on in Pakistan and how India created this narrative. I am asking, where's our narrative? Pakistan's side's narrative. Why don't we have the experts waiting in the wings to actually take on the issue and actually create that narrative?
Well, Pakistan, sadly, first of all, neither have they got those experts around the capitals of the Western countries, nor has the government really done. I mean, you didn't have foreign minister for 4 years.
Now we have one.
No, now
Today
you have
was
one, but I think he's
yeah.
got to learn also as well. So it's learning the job on you know, at the...
Just to remind you, we did have a foreign minister. It was Prime Minister of Pakistan
well,
who was
yes, but
holding the portfolio.
Prime Minister Sahab had lots of other issues to deal with, and he had, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 other ministries to deal with.
That's
and Pakistan is a country of 10 million, and so you cannot have one person dealing with such important jobs.
I totally agree.
And in my opinion, I don't think you just need one foreign minister. I think you need also 4 or 5 ministers of state in the foreign office. I say that again. I think you need 5 ministers of state under the foreign minister who should deal with specific areas and with issues, whether it is Europe, whether it is...
Even the great state of India has only 2 ministers of state.
But the little state,
policy.
the little state of United Kingdom has Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs and has 4 ministers under him, because these are the interests, whether it is Africa, Commonwealth, Europe, whether it is the rest of the world, they have to deal with it.
It's a good point, but we have to actually talk about the argument and the intellectual capital also, sir. Why is it that our intelligentsia hasn't been able to fight the case? Earlier, before coming to this program, we were talking about how many books have been written on Kashmir. From our perspective, we don't see that many.
This is unfortunate part. This, if you remember, Brutalities of last year, we talked a lot about it. That the state of
we always do, and there's this vicious cycle. We keep on revolving around it.
The state of Pakistan, the institutions of Pakistan, the universities of Pakistan, the think tanks of Pakistan will have to do on it. The India has worked so on your fault lines. They are issuing the PhD degrees to students, to scholars working on Pakistani fault lines. But unfortunately, we have not done so.
Why not?
They are the people.
Why not?
Why did not?
You had democracies, you had dictatorships, you had
everything.
every possible permutation of power.
It's a very hard fact. We discussed Kashmir last 2016 in this PTV building very regularly. But after that, we didn't saw much of Kashmir. Even this in PTV.
No, we kept on doing it.
It was just very little. Not that. If you will see the prime time India, Indian prime time from 8 to 10 on each of the Indian TV channel, the English TV channels, which are viewed across the globe, there is only one element, that is Pakistan bashing and Kashmir bashing.
They keep on doing that.
They keep on
I
doing
agree
that.
with him.
They keep on doing that. What we do?
We help them by bashing our own government, right?
We help them by cursing our own government,
Yeah.
but not doing so. But that's what we think, that we have to do a lot on this. This has remained a weak area whereby India has, the way the Lord was saying that internationally their narrative is being wide, because when you go, if you talk to anybody, if you ever talk to anybody, he will go to research, he can see the books, he will see the Google, he will search for that, and he finds the Indian narrative, because from our side,
I can
there's
give
a very
you at
less
least
intellectual
20 or 30 main international publications whose editors or senior ranking member of editorial committee are Indians from Indian origin, and now it is not even about that. Now Google is owning that narrative, and it keeps on censoring Kashmir's messages and mentions as well. But Mushaal Mullick Sahib, here comes the issue of intellectual capital. We have been asking this question repeatedly. Shouldn't there, before we actually start advocating, and we are advocating already, there has to be a narrative that sells. A narrative that was adopted in 1948, 1949, later on, usually needs to be a bit dynamic, the way India has been playing with it. So who's going to do it?
It is marketing required for it, and I believe now it's the time. The world is changing. We need to have a very soft face on Kashmir, which is internationally acceptable, to show the true face of Kashmir, the victims, their human stories, and every story, every person who dies, like 20 people died today, were martyred, young youth. Each one of them has a story. Their family, their victims, the sufferings, and how they got killed. It must be shown to the public over here. It must be shown abroad. Visuals, testimonies, seminars, documentaries should be made. The government of Pakistan, the political parties must all be united on one page on this national issue, and they should organize international high-powered seminars, they should invite delegations, they should invite Nobel laureates over here, they should go abroad, high-powered delegations to global capitals who should directly meet the foreign ministers of the P5 countries also. The way India, every year, India sends 16, minimum 16 high-powered delegations abroad, and they're not mostly politicians. They're intellectuals, they're poets, they're artists who project the narrative of India. And talking about India's narrative, it is a fake machoism of Mr. Modi that, you know, they're coming from the Pakistani bashing, anti-Pakistan narrative, or the Balochistan rhetoric, or the demonetization, surgical strikes, and, you know, blaming Pakistan for all that's going on in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and the blame game continues. But it's a propaganda machine. They work on it. And over here, sadly, the Pakistani state wakes up when they see more, the death toll increases.
Why?
That's a sad part. And that's when all these journalists and people ask me that, you know, now the wave, it's very high, this is the right time. I get irritated. I mean, only when we die, more people are dying, you realize that the movement is on it's in high tides. This is a tragedy. I mean,
totally
we are
get
not
that.
just body bags lying on the roads.
I
only
totally
then
get
the
what
world
you're saying.
we have to
Hang on.
continuously, rigorously, we have to advocate on a consistent pace.
Absolutely.
And even
I
right
agree
now,
with you.
I believe.
But here's
Even
another
right now, the
Yeah.
let me just end
Finish
my-
the point, yep.
Yeah, right now, the Pakistani Prime Minister should leave the country and go abroad with his ministers, take the other, invite the other political party leaders with him, and go to the global capitals, knock the doors, meet the head of the states, and tell them what's happening in Kashmir. Make the case urgent. We are dying. Every Kashmiri is dying right now. They're trying to change the demography, and for that, they're ready. The Indian state is ready to kill every Kashmiri.
This is a
so this
great
is very
idea,
important,
but
and
sadly,
they should do this because this is diplomacy at war footing is needed right now.
That is true, but sadly, perhaps there is the issue of timeline because this government is going
No,
to
it's
end
not
its
about timeline.
tenure.
You know, these people, this human loss. I mean, the UN can send 12,000 peacekeeping forces to Sudan, but over here, nobody will come here unless and until Pakistan raises this issue at the highest level and take it forward internationally.
Pakistan should be doing that, and we claim that we have been doing it in the past as well. But something has to give, something has to change. And there are two aspects that I have to understand and I have not been able to understand. There isn't any other concern closer to our heart than Kashmir after Pakistan's security and safety, right? For 70 years. And yet we haven't been able to master the art of projecting the matter. This is one aspect. The second is Indian intelligentsia. The media, their movers and shakers, they have zero conscience now.
Well, all countries have their own interests, and India and Indian intelligence services and even their media is very much controlled by the ruling party. And because there is a trend in India, when there is a right-wing Hindutva believing fascists, the RSS who are in coalition with the BJP, then you saw the ink attacks on some of the writers. You saw various other type of attacks on minorities. And then you saw the cow brigade, that if anybody was... And yet Hindus have big businesses selling their meat to the Middle East and the rest of the world. They export it. And yet hypocrites, they don't want Muslims to slaughter beef. So you saw this, and all in, you see, this suits Modi's BJP government, that so long as everything is diverted, the attention is somewhere else, and it's not on its own economy and some of the failures, because...
No, I understand that. You were saying that every country has its own national interest. I totally get it. But usually democracies, their interests are not at loggerheads with human rights, right? But here we see that a democracy is totally bulldozing human rights, not for a day, not for 2 days. It has been doing it for 70 years, and now it has doubled down.
Well, this is Indian Desi style democracy. They show it to the rest of the world that we are democracy. Look, Even Russian Putin says that he was democratically elected, and so did Colonel Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. They said they were democratically elected, and they had 90% vote. So you know, a lot of this happens, and other countries, they look at their interest. Do they really want to go and interfere in you know, Indian affairs and sort of criticize India at the expense of a big market where they make money and they have potential for businesses? Yep. So it really does come down to their own economic interests, their financial interests, but more importantly, their political interests as well. Yep. Western countries do not want to upset India because it's big. Pakistan is small. Pakistan has its problems.
I understand what you're saying about the reaction of the West and the international community. But right now I was focusing on Indian media as well.
Well, Indian media is very much controlled. It's not like Pakistani media.
It cannot be a monolith, can it?
But Indian media, very rare you get Indian media that will criticize raw. Very rare you get Indian media that will even mention their intelligence services or criticize their army. They tend to talk about their local issues, their regional political issues.
So and they have given up on conscience?
Yeah. If you see the...
I mean, I have another question for you. This was just a rhetorical point.
Really,
the question that I have for you. I mean, in this age, how difficult it should be when a girl aged 12 or 13 for that matter loses not only her eyesight but her eyeballs as well. And she's sitting there and you just have to take the picture and show it to the world. But all of a sudden, whenever you try doing it and Google, you know, put a word Kashmir in Google, you get the pictures of those victims. Immediately, what happens is India starts creating or you know, putting pressure on LOC. Immediately, the issue shifts from human rights to security and the flashpoint between two nuclear powers. And that is the concern. How do we counter this kind of techniques?
Yeah, this is a very important question you raised. Whenever India faces the criticism on what's happening in the Indian occupied Kashmir, they try to change to make escalations on the line of control and to fire on the civilian population on Azad Kashmir and working boundary.
And the world starts talking about nukes as if nobody lives in Kashmir.
This is where it comes to what Lord was saying, but your earlier question was what Pakistan has to do. Here Pakistan has to show the world the seriousness about there is urgency in Pakistan about this matter.
How to do it?
Yeah, I'll tell you. When we talk, that is we talk in talk shows that it will become a nuclear flashpoint. It's very threat to the security and peace of South Asia. But world should know it is really a threat to the peace in South Asia. It will only know when your government, when the officials of the government in all capitals, when your parliament will pass a unanimous resolution, you will rush to the Security Council, you will rush to the Human Rights Council for calling for a special session for that, you will send your able envoys to the different capitals and sound the world leaders that this situation is going to escalate.
All those things are subjective things. I can say if somebody is very able or capable. You can say they are not. The problem is somebody has to actually work around these matters and find a lasting solution. At least Pakistan's response to it, right?
Yeah.
There was a suggestion just now that the Prime Minister of Pakistan should take along his ranking cabinet ministers and you know, oppositional leaders abroad and try to convey this message internationally. But we have seen that when even Bilawal Bhutto Zardari goes to UK and he tries to protest, there are people who start attacking him from Pakistani community.
This has been, Lord will be in a better position to answer this question, but I will say this has been our people in diaspora, they have been working tirelessly, but their efforts, they have to put their efforts collectively. They are individually working hard, but they have to put their efforts collectively, and their collective efforts can make a difference.
Can I just come on this point that you raised regarding Bilawal? I was there. So a lot of the publicity around Bilawal's visit to that million march was local politics. It's because the organizers were not on board. There were another group that actually invited him. He was not involved in any of the campaigning before. He has spoken well since, by the way. But that was local issue. But I think there's a bigger issue, and that is that the last time Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif sent delegations to various countries, various cities around the world, at that time there were many people actually from other political parties who had no idea about the issue of Kashmir. See, this is why I say that when Pakistan is sending delegations to overseas, send these people who are experts, you know, because they are the ones who can speak in various platforms. But if you are sending somebody from, you know, I don't know, political class who really don't know, and they...
That's a good point.
And they don't know the issue, and really they cannot answer.
That's a good point, and it's Mushaal Mullick Sahaba, your argument's counterpoint as well, because he's saying that politicians can go abroad and they can raise the profile of the meetings, but they can hardly actually impart the kind of knowledge that is needed. You can respond to that, but I have another question for you. And that is regarding LOC violations. We have seen time and time again violations increasing every year. And now the problem is the people who die on both sides of the border are Kashmiris. It is actually Kashmiri laws. And every time I've talked to any policy maker, they just said that we'll have to engage them locally. We don't seem to have any other option, with the exception of two things. Engage them locally or go to a war. Nothing else. Who's going to explode those?
This is basically a distractive policy of India to distract from the human rights violations that are going on, and also to tell the world that, you know, God forbid some terrorists are coming from AJK to Kashmir, to the valley, to raise a gun against the Indian army. But the fact of the matter is that these are all cosmetic measures. These are all firefighting techniques, even within Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir right now. I mean, this is going on since ages, that whenever they kill any innocent person, the CM or some minister announces over there that, you know, now we will announce a probe, a commission, we will investigate. But the Indian forces have never been punished for it, because the same assembly, the J&K assembly, protects them through the draconian laws like TADA, POTA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and so many others. But the point is that why is Pakistan so weak right now? That's the critical point. That why is it so weak internationally? Okay, fine. One thing is that the world leaders are now business leaders. They've become businessmen. So they see a bigger market in India. But the second point, we must analyze our mistakes as well. That when you go abroad, a Pakistani goes abroad, you're divided in parties. India is not. They are all Indians with one flag. And when we go out, we are just leg pulling and we are just abusing each other.
We have to have unity among ourselves.
On national issues, there should be no party flag. The way Bilawal Bhutto, he was talking about him, this thing is good that people have sentiments for us, but it should not be under one flag. It should be just that Pakistan's voice and the voice of the Kashmiri people. That's where we lack.
Whosoever actually takes his flag, but they are talking about Kashmir, I think that they should be welcomed rather than actually bullied. Very quickly, sir, because you are the guest in town, just give me the conclusion, what can be done immediately?
Well, immediately, I think some of the atrocities that have been committed, there should have been mass demonstrations. I'm glad Government of Pakistan has announced the day, Black Day being 6th of April, and I hope that millions of people will turn up on streets, or at least hundreds of thousands will turn up on streets. Secondly, the Prime Minister, and if they are sending delegations, they have to be competent. Can I ask, can I beg that those individuals who are going, whether they're politicians or intellectuals, there has to be one narrative. Through Foreign Office, they have to have one voice, and then right places where they can go and challenge the propaganda from India.
Yeah, unity in politics is one thing, but unity in imagination should be there. And I have to actually conclude the program here. Mushaal Mullick Sahaba, thank you very much for your time. Wani Sahab, Altaf and Wani, thank you very much, sir, for your time as well. And Lord Nazir Ahmad, special thanks to you as well, sir, for being here. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. this discussion, of course, has been going on for quite some time, but you'll see that when it comes to introspection, we are merciless. Every time we talk about Kashmir, we end up asking ourselves, why is the world not listening? But here's the thing. Whatever democracy we have built here, whatever value system that have imparted in this society has originated from the West. And the people who actually taught us these things seem to be oblivious to these realities. When are they going to wake up? This is one aspect. The second is, people of India, how can I believe that a country of a population more than 1 billion has no conscientious person there? There must be something. That's why Modi hasn't been able to implement his entire agenda in Kashmir. But right now, what is happening is far more disastrous than any political, point scoring, and that is murder of kids and innocent citizens. I think the world needs to wake up, or then stop talking about democracy and human rights at all. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.